Nobody saw it coming. No announcement, no cameras, no carefully worded palace statement designed to manage public reaction. Just a quiet arrival in London. And then, according to royal insiders, something that stunned even the most seasoned observers of the British monarchy, Prince Harry was back on British soil, and almost immediately, attention shifted toward the one royal nobody expected to be part of the story. Not King Charles, not Prince William. Princess Anne, the monarchy's iron backbone, the woman who has spent decades deliberately staying out of family theater, reportedly made time for a private moment with the Duke of Sussex. And the second the detail surfaced, the entire atmosphere surrounding Harry's return changed completely. Because Anne doesn't do symbolic gestures. She doesn't perform reconciliation for cameras. She doesn't insert herself into emotional narratives without reason. So when her name appeared connected to this moment, royal watchers immediately understood. This wasn't a casual family check-in. This was something deliberate, something calculated, and possibly something that signals a far bigger shift inside the British monarchy than anyone is publicly prepared to acknowledge. Harry's return itself had already been designed to avoid attention. No dramatic headlines attached to the arrival. No public remarks. No immediate signs of confrontation or reunion. If anything, what stood out most was the absence of everything people had come to expect from surrounding Prince Harry and the royal family. The silence, the restraint, the sense that whatever was happening was being kept carefully away from microphones and media cycles. But royal watchers know that silence inside the monarchy is never truly empty. It is managed, it is chosen. And when a figure as disciplined as Princess Anne becomes part of a story surrounded by that kind of silence, the questions don't disappear. They multiply. For decades, Anne has cultivated an image almost entirely unlike any other senior royal. While headlines chased conflict, personality clashes, and dramatic turning points, she built her reputation in the spaces between those moments. Duty repeated until it became identity. Responsibility performed without expecting applause. Consistency so relentless it became its own form of authority. She is not the royal associated with emotional breakthroughs or carefully staged reconciliations. She is the royal associated with institutional memory, with endurance, with the quiet understanding that the monarchy must survive every personality that passes through it. That reputation is precisely why her reported involvement in this moment hit differently. Because if Anne seemed for Harry, observers argue it was never about sentiment. It was about something colder, more serious, and more consequential. Some insiders suggest the conversation, if it happened at all, was never designed to revisit old wounds or reopen chapters everyone agrees are too complicated to easily close. Instead, speculation inside royal commentary circles kept returning to a far more uncomfortable possibility. That Anne's role was not mediator, not emotional support, but something closer to institutional custodian, the person trusted to separate what belongs to history and what belongs to the future. And if that interpretation carries even a fraction of truth, then what was reportedly said behind those closed doors mattered far less than the simple fact that the conversation happened at all. Because Harry's relationship with London has never been simple geography. Every return, every absence, every quiet arrival has gradually become layered with meanings that extend far beyond movement. London is memory, identity, and unfinished business for him, and the royal family knows that better than anyone. Since the years of public interviews, competing narratives, and the memoir that reopened questions many believed had settled into history, the emotional architecture surrounding Harry's within the monarchy transformed in ways that created a permanent divide between the personal and the institutional. Supporters saw necessary honesty, critics saw disruption, but whatever position people took, one thing became impossible to deny. Those years altered something that couldn't easily be undone with a handshake or a carefully worded statement. Which is why this quiet return felt different to so many people watching closely. Not dramatic enough to signal full resolution, not distant enough to suggest complete separation. Instead, it occupied that uncomfortable territory in between. The place where family and institutions stop being the same thing, where personal history collides with constitutional expectation, where affection and obligation exist in the same breath without either one winning. And Anne, more than almost any other senior royal, understands that space. She has lived inside that tension for her entire public life. Royal commentators who have followed the monarchy for years describe her as someone who has never confused emotional repair with institutional stability. And that distinction is critical, because within the House of Windsor, trust is not primarily an emotion. It is a structure. It is predictability. It is the quiet understanding that roles can coexist with distance, that obligations survive disagreement, and that the institution must function regardless of what individuals feel about one another. If that was the framework Anne brought to any private moment with Harry, then the conversation was never about forgiveness. It was about acknowledgement. Acknowledgement that some relationships inside royal life exist beyond personal affection, that generations inherit obligations they never personally created, and that identity shaped inside this institution does not simply disappear because someone chooses to live outside it. Meanwhile, the palace stayed silent. No clarification arrived. No spokesperson stepped forward to cool the speculation. And with every hour that passed without an official response, public imagination filled the empty space with its own interpretations, some hopeful, some suspicious, some simply searching for meaning inside a story that refused to offer easy answers. That silence, royal experts argue, was entirely deliberate. The monarchy has survived not by explaining its crises, but by outlasting them. Control through patience, communication through restraint, and the ancient institutional belief that not every moment requires public explanation. But outside the palace walls, the questions kept growing. Because people weren't just asking whether a meeting happened. They were asking what it means for the future, what it means for Harry's relationship with an institution he once represented and then publicly challenged, what it means for William, whose growing influence behind Palacenes has increasingly made him the gravitational center of conversations about where the monarchy goes next. What it means for Charles, still carrying the combined weight of illness, duty, and the slow erosion of trust inside his own institution. And perhaps most quietly of all, what it means that the royal who reportedly made time for Harry was the one least associated with sentiment, the one whose presence inside any conversation signals not warmth, but weight, not emotion, but consequence. Because Anne's public image was never built on speeches or symbolic gestures. It was built on consistency. And consistency in the world of modern monarchy has become one of the rarest and most powerful forms of influence that exists. So whatever happened behind those closed doors, whether it was a turning point, a quiet acknowledgement, or simply a private moment being amplified far beyond its original significance by a public desperate for resolution, the silence that followed may end up being the detail remembered longest. Because in royal life, the moments that change everything rarely announce themselves while they are happening. They appear quietly without ceremony, behind doors that stay firmly closed. And sometimes the most important conversations are the ones nobody confirms ever took place. If you want to follow every development inside the royal family before the headlines break, subscribe to Crown Rift Daily right now. And hit the like button if this story